everybody, Mackenzie Lambert here, joined by my colleague John Cleveland.
Hi, everybody.
This one's going to be another installment of the Three Tenors, and this is one I did not anticipate to turn out as it would, because we had some conversation. It's 80s action movies. I didn't think about how much ground that would actually cover.
I did.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, when you told me, he sent me a text, folks, to give you a painting of this. He sent me a text going like, yeah, we'll here's some of the topics I want to cover in the next couple of times we record. And he sent me 80s action. And I go, you want to give me, like, focus that a bit? He's like, no, I think it's fine. And I'm like, no, I don't. So, I know if you've listened to some of these, you've heard me ramble a lot. I'm going to try to cease rambling as much as possible. Because my top 10s is fine. My honorable mentions, however, is not. My honorable mentions is going to be a speed run. I mean, just randomly naming things. Because there are so many action films from the 80s I need to talk about. So, this is going to be just a lot of titles. I'm not going to talk about each one a lot because I don't have time, or we'll be here for hours. So, buckle up.
Buy the ticket, enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to go ahead, and this is another instance where, I didn't bring Rob Hill's book with us, so this is just going to be, us not having to worry about his list and just really focusing on...
Sure, you can add his list to the end or something. Yeah.
So. All right, so let's just go ahead and go with you, John, first.
Okay. All right, so I've got honorable mentions in different categories of action. So sorry about that. All right, so we're just going to get into it. Honorable mentions for top 80s action movies. We've got probably the one that most, like, I'm going to name a couple that just barely missed the list, and then everything else is, like, just good. So ones that just barely missed the list, we've got Rambo First Blood, Lone Wolf McQuade, Police Story, Jackie Chan's, Yes Madam, Jumpin' Jack Flash, The Last Dragon, Commando, Streets of Fire, Bloodsport, Batman, Top Gun, Superman 2. Those all almost got it. The rest probably also almost got it, but we've got fantasy action. Basically, what I had to end up doing is, I tried to prioritize movies that are straight action, but those are hard. It's hard to quantify what is a straight action versus a crime action.
Sci-fi action.
Sci-fi action thing. So that's hence the breaking everything up. So we got fantasy action. We got Conan the Destroyer, The Beastmaster, Willow, Clash of the Titans. We got adventure action, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, The Goonies, Labyrinth, The Never-Ending Story, Adventures in Babysitting, Romancing the Stone, Remo Williams, The Adventure Continues, and Escape from New York. Sci-fi action, we got The Terminator, Running Man, Flash Gordon, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, Dune, Short Circuit, Akira, They Live, Maximum Overdrive. We've got cop action or military action, Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2, Lethal Weapon, Heartbreak Ridge. Comedy, we've got Cannibal Run 2, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Crocodile Dundee. And trust me, it hurt not to put Crocodile Dundee in my top 10. Post-apocalyptic, we've got Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. We've got Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Hell, there was like 5 Bond movies in the 80s. We've got For Your Eyes Only in 81, Octopussy in 83, also Never Say Never Again in 83, although that's arguably not a Bond movie, A View to a Kill in 85, Living Daylights in 87, and License to Kill in 89. Both Daltons were in the 80s. We've even got a bunch of bad movies from the 80s that people have heard it before. I love me some bad movies, and I love me some action bad movies. So
better have Ator on that list.
Oh, don't you worry. You know what? I'm just going to say, I'll say it off the top. Ator right off the top. All right, so we've got one of the greatest bad movies of all time, in my opinion, Hard Ticket to Hawaii from 87. Mm-hmm. We've got The Toxic Avenger, Trancers, Eliminators, No Retreat, No Surrender, The Seventh Curse, which is arguably not a bad movie, The Wraith, again, it's a bad movie. Malibu Express, Invasion USA, Gymkata, Kill and Kill Again, Force 5, Escape from the Bronx. We've got ninja bad action movies like Ninja 3 The Domination, Ninja Terminator, and Revenge of the Ninja. We've got Chuck Norris bad action movies like The Octagon. And just so you think, Chuck Norris was the king of the 80s. Arnold's the only one that can hold a candle to him. Listen to this. In The Octagon in 80, Eye for an Eye in 81, Silent Rage in 82, Force Vengeance in 82, Lone Wolf McQuade in 83, which is one of the greatest action films of all time. Missing in Action in 84, Missing in Action 2 at the beginning in 85, Code of Silence in 85, 1985. Invasion USA in 85. That man was busy in 1985. Delta Force in 86. Chuck Norris Karate Commandos TV cartoon show in 86, which he did help voice. Firewalker in 86. Braddock Missing in Action in 88. Hero in the Terror, which is a highly underrated Chuck Norris movie, in 88. So you get what I'm saying, there was a lot.
I don't think you've gone this far in a rant since Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny.
Yes. Well, this at least is a rant about just there's so much. Santa and the Ice Cream Bunnies is a whole different matter. All right, so my top 10. Now, I've said it before, like how I do my top 10s, but all you need to know about this top 10, ask me in 5 minutes, this top 10's different.
Okay.
These are all my top 10. However, this is the most, it doesn't matter the order. If you seriously ask me tomorrow, number 10 could be number 1. It does. This is an arbitrary list that I listed how I listed. I moved a couple around because I felt a little more right about it. And then I just went, well, if I was to watch number 1 right now, it would fall to number 10. And number 10 would move up and it would just be like that. So, with that said, here's my top 10. Blue Thunder from 83. Blue Thunder is the single greatest aviation-based action film ever put to screen, in my opinion. You like helicopters? Do you like the Apache? Basically, Blue Thunder invented it, and I do mean that literally.
Yeah.
The Apache didn't exist during the production. The government got word about some stuff and sent some people to the production crew, like, how did you get the plans for the Apache? And they go, we didn't. And then the Apache ended up with a gun that specifically is called out in Blue Thunder. Basically, in Blue Thunder, they said Apache helicopter with a turret-mounted Gatling gun that looks exactly where the pilot's looking. Yeah, that didn't exist, but now it does. So there's a rumor that the production company, the sci-fi department, special effects department for Blue Thunder, might have invented a gun the U.S. military uses now. Highly underrated movie. If you've never seen it, watch it. It could never be filmed today. Live action shots of helicopter dogfights inside of a city. You will see helicopters flying inches away from office buildings. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Number 9, The Golden Child. This is where, like, is it an action? Is it a fantasy? Is it a comedy? They all kind of mesh together, so, fight me. I don't care. The Golden Child, one of my favorite Eddie Murphy movies of all time. Basically because Charles Dance can do no wrong.
Oh, no, never.
So, it's also so quoted to me, and I know it's not his most loved film, but I love it. Big Trouble in Little China comes in at 8, in 86. Those movies are very similar. Matter of fact, Carpenter was supposed to film Golden Child, but didn't because he wanted to film Big Trouble in Little China. Very similar films, but Big Trouble in Little China is an amazing film. I don't need to talk about it. It's simply amazing. Again, fantasy action, but still action.
Yep.
Number 7, again, it feels weird saying number 7. It feels should be much higher, but it is what it is. RoboCop from 87. If you don't know RoboCop, I don't want to know you as a human being. Unless you've never seen it and you've been meaning to.
Yeah, like I said, the new video game that came out looks pretty sick.
Yeah, everyone loves it. I've heard only good things about the new video game. RoboCop vs. Terminator for Super Nintendo.
Oh, God.
That game was so hard.
This was a work of art. Yeah.
So, but no, RoboCop's an amazing film. I don't know what else to say. Number 6, Predator. I love when I love it when an action film starts off and the guys realize they're in a horror movie, not an action film.
Yep.
It's the only other film that holds a candle to changing genres mid-thing that is good is From Dusk Till Dawn. It starts as a crime drama or a crime thriller and then becomes a vampire,
Last Stand movie.
A vampire Last Stand movie. But no, love Predator. And again, if you don't know Predator, I don't know. We don't have anything we're going to talk about. Number 5, Conan the Barbarian. I love me some Sword and Sandal movie, so that it just is how it is.
And James Earl Jones turning into a giant snake.
Oh, yeah. One of the greatest fantasy films of all time, in my opinion. Number 4, The Blood of Heroes from 89. A bit obscure. Not a lot of people know it. Rutger Hauer's in it.
John Chen, I believe, also. So there's actually some good talent in this movie. Yep.
The premise is, for those who don't know, post-apocalyptic movie. There's just there's just random little tribes of people eking out existence, and the only form of entertainment is something called the game, which is just imagine rugby with weapons a bit. You have to put a dog, it's literally called just the game, and you have to put a dog's skull on a spike in your opponent's thing, and the opponent has weapons, and they're trying to stop you. And there's one guy who's allowed to touch the dog skull on each team, the runner, and this is just how it goes. Your team, you've got basically a goalie who's got like a net whip weapon. You've got a guys with stick-based weapons, and they're like, it's weirdly tactical. I'll put it this way: people actually play this game in real life. It's with Nerf weapons and stuff, but they developed into an actual game. But if you beat a team, you get their dog skull, and if you have enough dog skulls, eventually you could submit to playing the out in the wasteland. So there's basically bunkers underground, basically underground cities where the elite live, and obviously there's squalor and stuff there. But if you beat the home team, you get to be the home team. So basically, this is the only way out of being poor and living in the outlands and stuff. And it's a great film. I love it to death. It's a highly underrated film. It's one I could just sit here and talk about because it's just a cool film that not enough people are talking about. Top 3. And again, doesn't really mean anything because any of these movies could move. Number 3, Aliens from 86, because it's action horror. It's amazing.
Yep.
Number 2, Die Hard. Number 1, Highlander. Because what am I going to say about Die Hard?
Yeah.
Like, again, Die Hard, Predator, RoboCop. If you don't know this movie, we're not going to get along. It's so iconic. It's arguably one of the greatest action films of all time. Gun to my head, I had to put this with like what I think probably was going to be. Die Hard would probably be number 1. But for me, right now at this exact moment, that encompasses everything I love about the 80s into one movie, it's Highlander. It is a action, drama, science fiction film where it also has fantasy elements. I get cool sword fights. I get superpowers. There's even a good love story. Yeah. It also has like for 80s, it mattered. I was at a special age. It has boobs and an awesome soundtrack.
Yeah, that amazing Queen ballad. Yeah.
One of the coolest soundtracks of all time, in my opinion. One of the coolest villains of all time. And Lambert, although not being the greatest character of all time, or Connery being the greatest character, they both are perfect for the roles. Yeah. Despite Connery supposedly being Egyptian, which really just didn't need to happen.
Well,
he could have
just
already
Scottish.
Yeah, but still a fantastic movie that I don't care if it doesn't hold itself up. The special effects don't hold up as well, and I don't care that the fight. It's not the greatest sword fights in the history of film. I don't care. It's everything I like about the 80s boiled into one. The most concise film, I think. With that said, though, again, if I watch Highlander tonight, Die Hard's moving up to number 1. That's how it is.
Yeah.
So that's my top 10 and an incredibly long list of honorable mentions.
Okay, I'm a little more compact, so
it would be difficult.
Yes. All right, so I'll start with my honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is Red Dawn. Yep.
American propaganda at its best.
Yep. Thank you, Ronald Reagan.
I unfortunately I always kind of liked Red Dawn. I never loved Red Dawn, but like it is aged so weirdly.
Yes.
Like because right now, like I don't think it has. I think the acting is done well. I think that it is a young cast, proving that a young cast can carry a film.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it is so done reminded Reaganomics that I just don't like the film anymore.
Yep. And I always love it when someone like takes the movie down a peg, like in Grand Theft Auto Vice City. There's an advertisement for a gun store. It's like, now showing the documentary Red Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
All right, my next honorable mention. This is actually a nice blend of blaxploitation and comedy and action. I'm gonna get you, sucker.
Yeah. It does hurt me that I didn't put enough. I didn't put Shaft or something, and I should have. Yeah. Actually, I don't know if I like. I'll be honest with you. There's a whole other debate.
Yeah, the only thing I can think
Shaft
of...
Shaft or Superfly, which is better, but then I realized I think both came out in the 70s.
Yeah, well, I think you got like a ton of Fred the Hammer Williamson movies in the 80s, but they're not really noteworthy as like some of his earlier stuff. One you and I both love, Strike Commando, starring Red Brown.
I should have. I think that was in my bad movies, yeah. If it wasn't, it should have been.
All right, my last two honorable mentions are both John Carpenter movies, Escape from New York and Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
I just don't think that some of the action in Escape from New York is a bit clunky, but...
Yeah. I like it, but I like it... I liked it when it came out. It's still one of his better movies, but it's not... I like me some horror Carpenter. Action Carpenter is okay. Not my thing. Yeah.
All right, now going into my main list. Number 10, The Running Man.
Yeah, it was one of my. Trust me, but wanted to put it in my top 10.
And, just for the fact that Running Man inspired one of my favorite games as a kid, Smash TV.
Oh, jeez. One of Arnold's best.
Yeah. Number 9, They Live. One of the best fan fights of all time. Yep. So, yeah.
Again, almost was on the list.
Yep. My number 8, Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. Just a great idea of mixing mysticisms with espionage and spiery. That's always really cool.
It's an alt film noir.
Yes.
I love it.
Number 7, 1989's Batman, starring Michael Keaton.
Yep. Put Tim Burton on the map.
Yep. Number 6, RoboCop.
Because of course.
Yes. You're probably going to be surprised that it's this low on the list, but my number 5 is Die Hard.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh.
Number 4, Aliens. Yeah. Why the F not?
Yeah.
My number 3, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, I anticipated either Raiders or...
For me, it would have been Raiders or Last Crusade.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah. I just I anticipated both, if not one of them, and it would have been Raiders being on... it would have been Raiders being on your list, so that's not surprising.
2 and 1 are both Arnold Schwarzenegger films. It's just a matter of... It could be either one. It could be number 1 either day. So, my number 2 is Commando.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
I like Commando, but Bennett is a weak villain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's funny. He's a funny villain, but he is a weak villain.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, that's always held Commando back from me for being in that... Like, for me, Commando is the upper echelon of Arnold's B tier, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where I know a lot of people put it more towards the top or middle of A tier.
Yep.
I would say that Commando, unfortunately, for me, because of Bennett, falls to that. And I want to stress this out. I do think he did okay with the role. It's just that if you wanted to present him in that way, you needed to show him being... Like, he should have killed, 3 people with his bear. Or, he just needed a scene where we knew he really was a problem.
Yeah.
And he has no point shown that.
And it's I can't buy the fact that Louis Tully from the Addams Family is supposed to be your main baddie. I just I couldn't buy into that.
I mean, yeah, he does... He is not appropriate for that role. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But anyway, my number 1 is Predator. And anybody who tells you they don't like slasher movies but they love Predator, guess what Predator is? It turns into a slasher movie.
It's like I said, one of the reasons I love it so much is it's a classic 80s actioner where huge dudes with huge muscles are doing things, firing guns that cannot possibly be held by a living man. Like Ventura's gun in there, just so we're clear, is supposed to be turret mounted on a helicopter. Him and Arnold were the only people on set big enough to pick it up. But you have that scene where they can solve all their problems with violence and they're never going to get hurt. Look how they go about beating the village.
Yeah.
There are way more effective ways to have done that tactically. You didn't do it. You just blew up everything and killed everyone. And then they eventually come across the fact that they realize they're not in an action film. They realize they're in a horror film.
Yep.
And the rules of horror films don't benefit the protagonist at all. Matter of fact, I've said it before, a lot of people don't think about this. Horror's known for its final girl. There is technically a final girl, but she's not the big bad. Arnold's the final girl. Think about that. Yeah.
So, those were our selections for our 80s action movies. I hope you all were taking notes, because there's going to be a quiz later.
I expect every single one I listed to have you have watched it. You have a week.
Yes.
But no, let us know if we've missed any. I guarantee we have.
I think you covered the entire decade. So
no, I mean, I'll let you know. There are some I didn't put on because I'm I'm already listed too many. But there are a lot of good action films I didn't. It bothers me greatly that it doesn't bother me greatly. I shouldn't say that, but it is surprising to me that certain films aren't in my top 10. That Stallone's not in my top 10. Arnold's there twice. Eddie Murphy's in there. Eddie Murphy's in my top 10. Daniel Stern is in Blue Thunder. Daniel Stern is in one of the greatest action films of the 80s for me.
But you've got Roy Scheider from the 7-Ups and the French Connection, so you've got that legitimate link.
It's just, I'm looking at this, and it's impressive to me how many people you would have thought would have been.
And I realize I don't have Lethal Weapon, and that's one of the biggest action movies of the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, they're in my... It was... See, the thing for me is I've always liked Lethal Weapon, but I never had the... Like, Lethal Weapon to me was like, oh, there's a Lethal Weapon movie out. I'll check it out. But never, like, I looked after it. For me, Gibson was entirely Max.
Yep.
He just... That is his character, and I never thought... He's done well. I am not saying Lethal Weapon isn't good. He is perfect for that role. It's just, for me, he is Max from Mad Max and everything. Because I grew up with the Mad Max. So, like, having grown up with it, it's always been weird to me seeing him as other things, if that makes sense.
No, fair enough. All right, so that was our extensive journey through 80s action movies.
Yes, extensive, yes.
So yeah, feel free to share some of your favorites in the comments below.
Absolutely.
Because you should have some if you're our age. So yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. All right, so on that note, we're going to go ahead and sign off. This is Mackenzie Lambert.
John Cleveland.
Have a good night, folks.
Bye.
Mackenzie Lambert here, your host for Megan the Movies, joined by my friend and colleague John Cleveland.
Hi, everybody.
We're going to be going through another year for What a Year, and we're going to go back to, well, the year I graduated from elementary school, 1997.
I don't know what I was doing in 97, but okay.
All right, we're going to go ahead and share some of our favorites from that year in particular. Okay. I'll probably go ahead and give a start.
Okay.
I would have honorable mentions, but there's just so damn many of them.
There are a lot.
Yes.
There are a lot.
Yeah, so, 97, really good year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and skip my honorable mentions and just go right into my main 10.
Okay.
Number 10, Event Horizon, starring Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne.
Fantastic film.
This is what I hope a Dead Space movie looks like.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, like, as a giant fan of the movie, and I'm very happy it's getting, like, a reprisal, per se. Although I will say the horror community always loved it, everyone else just had the problem with it.
Yep.
But I will say some of the CGI towards the end didn't really hold up.
Nah, especially not 90s CGI, never does.
Yeah. But with it, I don't care. Great thing. I also I saw a review of it recently, and the guy pointed out something. We need to give Lawrence Fishburne more credit for being the smartest person in a horror film of all time. Yeah. He sees the stuff about the ship, sees its demons, sees its craziness. First move. Turns off the video. We're leaving this ship. He wants off the ship at no point. But that's the thing. It's always some idiot trying to keep him there. It's like, no, he wants done with this. Yep. So,
and surprisingly, this is Paul
W.S. Anderson.
W.S. Anderson. Yeah, this is after Mortal Kombat and before he did the Resident Evil movies.
Yeah, it's proof that he can make a good movie as long as he doesn't try to involve his wife.
Yes,
in it. Or at that a woman he fell in love with, and there's something to be said about that. I don't actually dislike the first Resident Evil movie. It's fine for what it is. The rest of them go sideways, let's say. Yeah. I'm just going to say sideways. Yep. Not my thing. Nope. Very much not my thing, but, whatever.
All right, let's see. My number 9 is Josh Becker's Running Time, starring Bruce Campbell. This is an indie film that is shot so that it looks like the entire film is one continuous take.
Okay.
So before 1917, but after Alfred Hitchcock's Rope, it kind of does that gimmick.
Okay. Never even heard of it.
It's actually a really solid heist movie with Bruce Campbell kind of playing against Cass, because he's not really, the tongue-in-cheek cult icon that he is in the Evil Dead movies.
Okay. All right. I mean, so I tend to find when he plays against type, it doesn't work very well. There's that Icebreaker, whatever movie, where he's a not mute, but he doesn't talk a lot, and he has no charisma, and they shaved his head, and he's a terrorist, and it just It doesn't work.
But here you can definitely see that Campbell has said that William Holden is one of his favorite actors, and you really see it in this performance.
Okay, I'll give it a try.
And it's only like a little over an hour long, so it's not...
That never bothers me. Yeah.
All right, number 8, Suicide Kings, starring a crap load of great actors.
Fantastic movie. It's going to be on my list.
Yes.
It's a movie I love bringing up to people. Actually, I said it isn't on my list. It's honorable mention, but still. Fantastic film. Not enough people talk about. Walken, perfect example that Christopher Walken is a great actor and doesn't need to be
the parody that
the parody of himself when he wants to be. It's most of the movie is just him sitting down because spoiler he gets kidnapped. In the ramifications of that whole thing and how it breaks down. Now I will say, doesn't have the ending I thought it should have specifically, but it's still got a good ending. If you've never seen it, highly suggest. Every time I show it to somebody, they go, "Oh, I'm going to start showing this to people."
Yes.
It's that kind of movie.
And I love one of the behind-the-scenes stories. This Jay Marr is in the movie as well. Comedian Jay Marr, of all people.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how Christopher Walken's like, there was this dog, and he had no tail. It's like, how do you know how the dog is without the tail?
Yeah, it's just a great film of a lot of, at that time, Hollywood up-and-comers, when I'm going to sadly have to say that I don't think anyone really... a lot of them are famous, some aren't anymore.
Yeah.
But I will say, I don't think anyone in that developed to the point I thought they could have. That was, I want to say, it's like the Breakfast Club or anything like that. But it's weirdly some same degree. I mean, who in the Breakfast Club became famous? They all became famous, but none of them are icons of thing. So I think it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where all these kids had such great talent and none of them fully utilized it, and at least the way we all thought they would.
Yeah, and I think the only other big name at the time was Dennis Leary.
Yeah, I think Leary and Walken were the big names. There were some younger big names in it.
Like I remember Sean Patrick Flannery is in that, so yeah.
So I just feel that unfortunately everyone in it didn't really reach their full potential. No. With that said, though, great film, highly suggest.
My number 7 is The Full Monty with Robert Carlyle. I had to keep this movie a secret for a while just because if you go to an all-guys school and you say, hey, I enjoyed The Full Monty. Yeah.
I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I went to a school where it's the same thing. We were in high school roughly the same time, all in all.
Yeah.
And when it came out, I was in high school, and it definitely wasn't a movie that, like, as a dude, you were going to say you... But, like, I thought a lot of people liked it. Like, I remember hearing about it and, like, going to see it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's again, I think it's honorable mention for me.
And I enjoyed listening to the soundtrack as well because this is the movie that introduced me to Hot Chocolate, and I've listened to them on a regular rotation.
Yeah, The Full Monty was one of those movies that I think was the reappraisal of British cinema films.
Yep.
Like it was the first British film I had heard about in a while. That wasn't a Bond film.
My number 6 is my Hayao Miyazaki entry, and that is Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, you're gonna appear on my list.
Yep.
It's my favorite anime of all time.
Yep. I'm actually now starting to finally make my way through Miyazaki's catalog, and I gotta say this is probably my favorite of what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I haven't watched all of them. I watched most of them, and it is my favorite. It's the first anime I ever watched. I remember not saying I wasn't going to like anime because my experience with it was very secondary, growing up in a small town before the internet was as big of a thing as it is now. And a friend goes, no, we got to watch it. Trust me, it's a good story.
Yeah.
I watched it. I fell in love with it, and it made me want to like anime, and I've still I could probably say there might be a dozen animes, whether TV shows or movies I like.
Yep.
Everything else I just don't. There's no like okay. It's just I like them or I don't, and it is 100% number one.
Oh yeah. All right, my number 5. Independence Day may be the movie that was like really Will Smith's first blockbuster, but the movie that really showed that he was a movie star was The Men in Black.
Yep. In my honorable mentions. Yep.
And just him working with Tommy Lee Jones, like
a
duo that you think wouldn't work.
Yeah. Well, yeah, on paper maybe it didn't work, but it did. Like,
yes.
Well, because like Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey in
they hated each other.
But it also it worked on screen because they are opposites. But I get where like Carrey just dominates.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in that you couldn't let Two-Face's character doesn't get to be Tommy Lee Jones fully. So it's an absurdity with an absurdity, and one is more absurd.
Okay.
This is a straight man. That's a straight man comedian thing. It's the guy out of water and the old wiry veteran.
Yes.
It's a great combo. I think in our top 10 duos.
I had them on my list.
They were or buddy comedies or whatever it was. They were on my list as well. Yeah, absolutely.
My number 4, The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis and Mila Jovovich.
One of my favorite sci-fi films of all time.
Yep.
Yep.
And just Gary Oldman with that thick
Everyone.
Texas drawl.
Zorg, amazing. Everything about that movie is amazing. I love it to death.
And just the great opera sequence.
Yeah, multipass.
All right, my number 3 is Neil Jordan's The Butcher Boy, which is basically about a kid who ends up becoming a serial killer.
Yeah. That's an intense film.
Yeah, and the book is even more intense, too.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
All right, my number 2, you know what? Quentin Tarantino's best movie, Jackie Brown.
Okay, I don't agree with that. I think it's his most underrated movie.
Yeah.
But it's a great film. It just is. It's in my honorable mentions. It's Pam Grier's best movie.
Mm-hmm. Then you got her and Robert Forster.
Yep.
Michael Keaton, who would later do the same role in another film. I can't think of it, though. He plays that same cop in another movie.
I didn't know he plays in another movie.
Yeah, but still, you got Robert De Niro was just one of the sleaziest characters he's ever played. So,
we just Ford, Mrs. we just saw her.
Yeah, Bridget Fonda. Yep,
Yep. There's just it's a really good movie, and if you're a fan of Tarantino's stuff and you haven't seen it, you owe it to yourself to see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, and my number 1, I gotta say, one of my favorite action movies, Con Air.
Wow, your list is a lot different than I would have picked it to be. Like, when we write these lists, like, I generally think I know at least. I'm like, I usually am like, sometimes, this one's going to be his number 1, or this is like, oh, this is why you wanted this year's, because this movie.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't pick Con Air for number 1 out of you.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I like Con Air.
Yeah.
But...
And just the amazing cast and the weird array of characters. Like, you've got Steve Buscemi as this Hannibal Lecter character.
John Malkovich just being John Malkovich.
Danny Trejo
being Danny Trejo.
Yep. And Nick, Chris, and you know what? John Cusack.
Yeah, Cusack is putting it in. Doing basically everyone in the movie is good.
Yep, and of all people, you've got Cole Meany, who I knew from like Star Trek: The Next Generation. He plays in this, so it's
a fantastic film. It's just, I'm more surprised that it's your number 1 of the year. That's the part that I'm surprised by.
Yep, it's 90s action movies with Nicolas Cage.
All right, man.
Yeah.
All
right, so that's my selections for 1997.
Okay. Well, so I went through IMDb's list. There are 4,589, which I think might be the most so far.
Yeah.
Films that were released in 1997, again, according to IMDb. So I've got a couple honorable mentions. You wrote too many. I didn't. So Speed Round. Good Will Hunting, The Devil's Advocate, Boogie Nights, The Ice Storm, Suicide Kings, Men in Black, Con Air, The Game, Jackie Brown, Perfect Blue, Donnie Brasco, Contact, Copland, Alien Resurrection, Funny Games, Vegas Vacation, Lost Highway, Tomorrow Never Dies, Cube, Gummo, The Rainmaker, Kiss the Girls, G.I. Jane, Titanic, Mimic, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, Bean, the Mr. Bean movie,
Mr. Bean, yep.
The Peacemaker, The Relic, Wishmaster, Beverly Hills Ninja, Rocketman, 187, which is Sam Jackson's best film by a margin that is difficult to describe to somebody who thinks it's a Marvel film.
And Rocketman for me is a guilty pleasure.
And Rocketman is just a guilty pleasure. The Pest, Nothing to Lose, Rosewood, McHale's Navy, Masterminds, and Hemoglobin. Hemoglobin's maybe a bad movie, but...
but Rosewood, I would agree, that's a great one.
Oh, fantastic film. All right, so I also, because I've said it before, I love bad movies, so I've got some so bad they're good movies. And again...
Lay it on us.
Yeah, blame it on me. I also don't think this first one is I forgot to mention it earlier. It's not a bad movie. Good Burger. I think Good Burger's fun. And Good Burger's actually getting a sequel soon.
Oh, yeah. Paramount.
Which in no way that I think it needs. No. But anyway, Good Burger's good.
It was a peak period of late 90s Nickelodeon programming.
Yes. So, back to the bad movies. We've got Face Off, Anaconda, Spawn, Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Oh, God, that is one of the
Howard Stern Private Parts, Double Team, Steel, Kull the Conqueror, Fire Down Below, Chairman of the Board, Hideous, with an exclamation point, from Full Moon, and Blood Moon, I think also from Full Moon. All right, so my top 10. Now, these are the movies I thought would be in the top 10. Now, there are a couple that were on your list or on my list in different orders. but I am there. I'm going to say something, and I feel like you're going to go, oh. But again, you didn't say your honorable mention, so maybe not. Yep. So, number 10, Val Kilmer's like 4th best movie, The Saint.
Yeah, I would say underrated too.
A highly underrated film. Jennifer Shue, just great.
And just the one guy who's always like the Russian bad guy. Friends, compliment Russians.
Number 9, The Night Flyer.
I know that Stephen King made for TV, and I never really...
Stephen King made for TV.
But I hear so many good things about it.
Yes, such a great horror film. One of Stephen King's best.
And Miguel Ferrer, I believe.
Miguel Ferrer in one of his best roles. Number 8, Event Horizon. We already talked about it. Mm-hmm. Number 7, The Edge.
With Hopkins and Baldwin versus the Bear.
Yep. Fantastic film.
I used to work with students who had developmental disabilities, and there was one kid who would always quote that movie of all movies, like, "I'm going to kill that bear."
No, that is an odd... in all fairness, I had a friend, because we watched it growing up, I had a friend, there's a scene in the movie where Anthony Hopkins' character, I'm not getting into it, he goes, "Fire from ice. Can you tell me how?" And it's all about like taking a piece of ice, molding it in your hand to create a lens, and using a lens so you can get fire. But like the whole premise is he keeps just asking Baldwin's character about it, and it's just like so like, what are you talking about?
It's like a one-handed clap type thing. Like
Fire from ice. Can you tell me how? No one can tell you how. All right, not to dwell, but number 6, and the one I thought was going to be on your list.
Okay.
Fierce Creatures. It's A Fish Called Wanda, but better in my opinion.
I don't know. I still like A Fish Called Wanda more.
I just like Fierce Creatures more. I don't know why. I just think it's a better film. Made by the same people, so if you like Fish Called Wanda, you're probably going to like it, but it is what it is. Top 5. Okay. Grosse Pointe Blank.
Yeah, that's another one.
Another one I'm surprised he was not on your list. Arguably Cusack's best.
Yeah, and you also got Dan Aykroyd as like a rival.
Yeah.
Yep.
The rival assassin.
Yep.
A great movie. Number 4, and now you're going to hear a lot of the similarities, but there's one that you didn't do, and I'm surprised. Okay. Number 4, Princess Mononoke, we talked about. Yep. Number 3, Starship Troopers.
Yeah, that would have been an honorable mention for me. Okay. And also too, I just have a soft spot for the riff tracks. So
sure, one of the best riff tracks, but it's also like it's a good movie to make fun of, it's also like arguably a great satirical film.
Yep.
So I mean, it's got there's a lot of layers to that movie, more than people think.
There's a lot more between the ears than people want to give it credit for.
Exactly. But I think I think it's generally known that there's it's a commentary. Number 2 and number 1 are equals.
Okay.
All right. One I like because it's dramatic and one of the best science fiction films of all time. The other because also a science fiction film. It's because it's comedic and fun and a completely different reason, depending on what you value more or your mood thing. So these are equal. I'm just going to write them in the order I wrote them, but that doesn't necessarily mean the order of quality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine.
So number 2, we'll say, is the previously mentioned The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
It's just a fun movie. I've seen it more than a dozen times.
Yeah.
It's a great film. Number 1, and again, I'm not saying it's better, I'm just saying, Gattaca.
Oh, yeah.
Gattaca is one of the greatest science fiction films of all time.
Yes.
It just is.
Yeah.
It's a commentary on how our society works. It's one of those ones that's getting more realistic as we move on.
Yeah, there was even like a survey among NASA scientists, and they polled and they said Gattaca is the most accurate science fiction movie ever made.
With CRISPR now and everything, like Gattaca. If you've never seen Gattaca, it's not action-packed. It's a slow drama. There are functionally 3 characters. There are more. There are a lot more characters.
I know like Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman.
Yep, it's one of the movies they made together. Spoiler alert: they were married for a while. Maya Hawke is their child. If you're a fan of Stranger Things, or her albums, I guess she has multiple albums.
Okay.
But it's mostly those 2, and then not Jared Leto. Who was in AI? Who was the main actor or second? Not Haley Joel Osment, the other guy.
Oh.
Who is taking the Hobbit's ties? Not Bloom. I can't remember, but it's another famous... Jarrett, no. I can't think of his name anymore.
You said that they were in Lord of the Rings?
No, they're not.
Oh.
That's Bloom, and it's not Bloom.
Okay.
I can't think of the actor's name off the top of my head.
Yeah,
but anyway, it's a small cast. Highly suggest if you've never seen it. And if you did see it back in the day and you kind of liked it, and you want to, trust me, rewatch it. Mm-hmm. It gets better with the current, what we know we can do with genetics and stuff now. And it's also just a commentary on social class too. Mm-hmm. Something to, there's something there too. So I think Gattaca is one of those. It's always a movie that I try to talk about more because it truly does not get the love that it truly deserves. So yeah. So that's my list.
No, good list. But a lot of the ones like Gattaca, I would have had that in my honorable mentions as well too, because that is a really, really telling movie.
Yes, very much so.
Yep. All right, so those are our selections for 1997. Feel free to share yours in the comments below. And,
I'm sure we missed some.
Oh yeah. John can only cover so many movies himself. So.
Yes.
All right, so until next time, this is Mackenzie Lambert
and John Cleveland
signing off.
Bye.
Hey folks, Mackenzie Lambert here, host for Mac and the Movies, joined by my good friend and colleague John Cleveland.
Hi everybody.
This is going to be another installment of Character Actor Corner. Last time we looked at one of our personal favorites, John Goodman.
Yes, I'm John Cleveland.
Yes,
he's John Goodman. Yes.
And so we've thought about a connective tissue film. What film can we do that both Daniel Stern and John Goodman have
both been in?
Yeah.
It's Chud.
Yeah. So, we're going to go ahead and go through some of our favorites of Daniel Stern, who
okay.
I think is overall a very solid character actor.
Yes, I think, I don't hear many negative statements about him, but I do think that, and I'll say I don't know if I need to hear more about Daniel Stern than I hear, but I know ever so often I'll read an article about how underappreciated he was.
All right, so actually I'll go ahead and I'll share off with mine first.
Sure.
My honorable mentions, which might surprise a lot of people, I have the Home Alone films in my honorable mentions. Just because those are the films that pretty much put him on the map.
Oh, 100%.
Yes. And just his chemistry with Joe Pesci, too. Like, those... I could see a movie with just them, and I would...
I would have liked to see... I wish Home Alone 2 was just them robbing a different kid.
Yes.
I get why it wasn't, but, I'd like to see the Wet Bandits, go on. Yep. Actually, I know not a Daniel Stern comment, but something I like to say sometimes. It's an idea I've had. I don't know. I probably read it somewhere. It's probably not my idea, but an interesting idea. I would like to see in this time when they're revamping old
legacy
franchises,
sequels and
legacy
stuff.
sequels, yeah. I'd like to see a legacy sequel of the Home Alone where it's just Kevin McAllister currently, so he's like a 40 some odd year old man defending his home on Purge night
with the Wet Bandits.
With the Wet Bandits helping him out.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to watch this movie. Some Hollywood. Make
House. Get on it.
Yes. Pesci, I get it. You can't afford Pesci. I get it. Daniel Stern will do this.
Yeah. Or you can have who's the one actor from The Sopranos that could be like the son of Joe Pesci? Who's
I don't know. I didn't like The Sopranos.
It's like Chris Ippo. But whatever.
You could say his name was Bob. I don't know.
But no, he's the guy that gets shot in the foot by Joe Pesci in Goodfellas.
Oh, okay.
He could be like the son of Harry Lime. So
sure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I get it. You can't do it, but it's just I know it doesn't need to have. I'm trying to talk about Daniel Stern, but I just think that's a cool idea. So
come on, just the box office on the premise alone would make a good movie.
You'll get that, and please make it rated R, so that because you're not selling this to kids.
No,
it's
you're selling it to the adults who grew up on
Home Alone.
Yes,
and just think that it's a funny idea. Those poor Purge people not realizing they entered the wrong house.
My next honorable mention is Bushwhacked.
I love that movie.
Yes,
I love that movie.
Yes. And another honorable mention, a rare example of his voice acting work is the Dilbert cartoon, because he was the voice of Dilbert.
Yes.
Scott Adams' disturbing political views aside.
Yes, the creator of Dilbert is Side, yes.
Yes.
But
City Slickers is another one.
Yeah, great film.
Yep. And my last one, Little Monsters, where he was the father of both Fred and Ben Savage.
Yes. Both Fred and Savage, yes.
Okay, now for my main entries. I have Blue Thunder as my number 3, just because he's so youthful, so energetic. He's a nice contrast to Roy Scheider's tired, cynical perspective. Okay.
Just wasn't expecting Days of Thunder, that's all.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're right.
Yeah.
It's just I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
That came out of left field for me. Yeah, okay.
All right, my number 2, as a reference to Little Monster, is The Wonder Years, where he was the voice actor for the show starring Fred Savage.
Yes.
Yep.
Wait, so your number 2 pick is a narrator job?
Yeah, he was there through episode 1 all the way to the very end. So
okay. I mean, it's an honorable mention for me, so it's not like I can't complain per se, but like, oh, okay, I would never have put a voice acting job as an honorable mention or as one of my picks.
Entry, yeah.
But, hey, I get it, man. It's true. He's there all the time.
Mm-hmm. And my last one, number 1, I gotta say, as funny as he is in Home Alone and Bushwhacked, I thought he was absolutely hilarious in Rookie of the Year, where he plays the batting coach.
It's just so weird because our lists are like close. I mean, you're gonna have this, but like it's like Strangers in the Night. Like I think you're leading to one, and then I'm like, oh, okay, he picked this. It's obvious. Oh, and I'm like, where are you getting these? Yeah, so my list is completely different than this.
All right, so yeah, that's my selections for Daniel Stern. Go ahead and feel free to share with us yours.
All right, so a couple honorable mentions. City Slickers, mostly the first one, but also the second one. Because if you were alive in '91, City Slickers was like the best comedy that year.
Oh yeah, and you know what? I gotta say, going from Bruno Kirby to John Lovitz, that's kind of a bit of a downgrade. Just because I
thought they had better chemistry in the first one. I'll say that, but I will never. John Lovitz is just hilarious. I don't care. So I saw him in person once.
Yeah.
Like I got him to actually play. He was playing a piano, and I got him to. He was just sitting there at the piano, and I got him to play the first part of what's the song it's a very famous song for this is ruining the story. I can't say the story. It's not Sweet Home Alabama. What's the other song?
Freebird?
Yeah. Okay. I'm like, play Freebird! And he started playing Freebird on his piano, which is amazing. So City Slickers 1 and 2, Rookie of the Year, honorable mention, Little Monsters, Chud, was previously mentioned, Blue Thunder, which is a highly underrated actioner. Yeah. I would have chosen that as top 10, but he's spoiler, not in it enough. Otis from 2008 is pretty good. And his voice work in Dilbert in the Wonder Years, I did have his honorable mentions. And then my last honorable mention that almost made my top 3. If there's a 4, this would be it. It's Leviathan.
Ah, all right.
Yeah, from '89. But so my top 3 are, and I do have Bushwhacked.
Yep.
From 1995, hilarious film. Great. It's PG-13. You could show it to your whole family. No problem there.
Yeah.
The whole premise of that is he's on the run and ends up through a series of events taking the place of because he needs to get up this mountain, and there's a kids scout group that's going, so he pretends to be the scout leader, takes the place of the scout leader, and turns out he knows nothing of scouting because he's like a career criminal from the city. But the kids teach him things, he teaches the kid things while getting it's hilarious.
It's just that great scene where he's the human bridge.
Yes. It's just a really good scene. I highly suggest it's worth watching. Number 2, and I wanted to put this number 1 because he is more a lead in this than he is the thing I chose number 1. But if I was being honest with myself and I'm choosing the films that are better, I did it this way. Number 2 is Celtic Pride from 1996, which is just Tim and Dan Aykroyd
and Damon Wayans.
Just proving that all of them are some of the funniest people alive that no one wants to talk about being the funniest people alive. The premise of that is Mr. Stern and Aykroyd are gigantic Celtic fans, and Damon Wayans is like the point guard for the Utah Jazz, who's like the Knicks Michael Jordan, except he actually a better way. He's the skills of Michael Jordan, but the attitude of not Kobe Bryant. I don't know. He's very attitude. He knows he's the greatest.
So it's like, if Terrell Owens was a basketball player.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Football fans will know the reference.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. He's just a very egotistical sports thing, but he's also very good. So like they kidnap him on the premise if he's not with the Jazz, they're not going to beat the Celtics. The Celtics will go on to become the champions. Well, it goes sideways, and it's hilarious. Highly suggest. And finally, it's Home Alone. It's his best film.
Yep.
Like, I grew up with Home Alone. I enjoyed it. I never loved Home Alone, but it's never a bad watch. I watched it at Christmas a couple years ago, around the holidays at least, and I'm just like, you know what? This movie still holds up. It's still a really good movie, and Stern is putting in a lot of work. I mean, physically, he's putting in a lot of work. But the movie's still great, and it's because of the interaction between Kevin McAllister, well, I just use the characters' names versus the actors' names.
Harry and Marv.
Yeah. But the three main characters, their interactions are really what drive the plot. So I really do think, despite him being let's be honest, a plot device just for slapstick, still a great film, and he's great in it. So, yeah. So those are my top three.
Nice. All right, you know what? With the holidays coming up, I think we could do a really interesting string here. We have Daniel Stern from Home Alone.
Yep.
And we also, before recording this week, we haven't really talked about like any character actresses.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, you know what? Let's go for Catherine O'Hara.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yep.
I'm a big fan.
Oh, yeah. And then we can lead that into, spoiled earlier, John Hurd. So we can get like the big Home Alone choices right out of the way.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
All right. So, next time it will be Catherine O'Hara, and the time after that will be John Hurd.
Catherine O'Hara's going to be a wild chick. I think John Hurd, you and me are going to end up with a very similar list. Catherine O'Hara's going to be wild.
Yeah.
She has a disturbingly huge career. Like, people do not give her credit for how diverse her career is.
Oh, yeah. And it's like I was watching Dick Tracy, and I was seeing one of the characters in the background. It's like, wait, that's Catherine O'Hara. But it's like you gave her no dialogue. You freaking wasted her.
Not getting picked.
No.
No.
I mean, just seeing
You also need to stop rewatching Dick Tracy. Yeah. You're the only person.
But it's a technical basis. It's an amazing movie.
Yes. You're not wrong. It is a great film. You're just the only human being in 2023 who's watching Dick Tracy. And, like...
Honestly, I'm just hoping Warren Beatty gives me the rights so that something can be done with it.
I mean, I don't really think that Dick Tracy... I'm going to tell you this. Robin Hood is a story that is relevant continuously. That's why every 10... Well, not the only reason, but about every 10 years we get a new Robin Hood movie.
Yep.
Because stealing from the rich, giving to the poor, somehow is always going to be relevant.
Yes.
A film noir, neon cartoon strip from the 20s doesn't really hold the same... Like, no offense, I don't want to see a movie about a old school vintage cop beating up gangsters, because the concept of that is a little old.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's too rigid of a character to adapt, I think. Now, with that said, if you gave an actor who is a bit out there, like, I don't want to see Waititi, or I always pronounce his name last wrong. Like, I feel like they'd give him, if this, let's say Warren Beatty got the studio, he just gave the studio, he sold the rights back to the studio. And the studio just went like, oh, we want him because he does bright and colorful and funny. It could work, but that's not...
But as far as the lead role, I would say John Hamm.
No, see, here's the issue. You're just recasting the original. I don't want that. I want... That movie's been made.
Yeah.
And that movie's just, he's a good guy. It's basically it's proto Sin City.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow, that's a weird statement.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
That is so true, though.
Yeah.
So, in that way, I don't know if it has a compelling story, because we've already done the gritty reboot, with which I think is Sin City. Now, if you're doing it's going to be a comedy. It's going to be a comedy actioner where all the bad guys are... Because let's be honest, if it was remade right now, all the bad guys wouldn't just look weird. Like, Flat Top would literally be able to break bricks over his head.
Oh,
they'd all have superhero powers.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know if it should be made now. Also, the concept... When you make a cop movie now, you can't just make a cop beating up criminals outside the law. That doesn't...
Yeah.
Right now, if you were to go rewatch Dirty Harry, it is not the same movie it used to be.
Miranda rights are violated everywhere.
It is not... I've rewatched it, and yes, they do a lot to make sure that you hate Scorpio. I mean, he's going to shoot a bus full of children. but like it doesn't appear that like he's evil, so he's doing it. It feels like this is the only way you can make sure you don't like this guy more than you don't like the cop, who is probably should be spending most of his life in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right, so off that tangent,
Yes.
yep. Well, next time we'll be taking a look at Captain O'Hara, which should be really interesting.
I'm super excited
Yes.
about this. I'm super excited about this one.
All right, so until next time, this is Mackenzie Lambert
John Cleveland.
signing off.
Bye.